So here we are talking about problems of urbanization. So we have this large group of immigrants that are coming in, and as a result of where the jobs are, they're settling in the cities. And so in the cities, they're going to find some place to live. And so we're going to have the growth of our cities and unsafe conditions in housing as well as in the workforce. So we have a lot of problems that arise as of urbanization. People are coming to urban areas, to cities, because there was a lot of opportunity. There were factories there and jobs were there, so all of these different things were going to contribute to the influx of immigrants at the turn of the century and shortly thereafter. So because they have these new textile mills and factories and also new transportation systems popping up, they needed people to work on them. So it's another cyclical thing that's happening where because of so many people coming in, they needed new transportation systems, so they needed more workers, and then the workers were more people coming in, and it just kept going and going and going. A lot of our early immigrants are going to settle in cities because they aren't necessarily going to go to the South. There aren't jobs for them. We're still dealing with the aftermath of the Civil War and how to employ all of these freed African Americans. So they're going to settle in the cities where there are jobs and factories that will be able to take in the need for their employment. And also they're going to settle in cities because they're going to be able to find other communities of immigrants like themselves. So as a result of this movement to cities, they will be surrounded by other immigrants. It's convenient and it's cheap because they're putting lots of people in one room in a small apartment to be able to have some place to live. And as part of this growth of the cities, we have a lot of ethnic neighborhoods that evolve. If any of you have parents who are from the St. Paul area, my parents grew up in St. Paul, and there was definitely small communities within the large community where, you know, the Germans would settle and the Irish would settle and the Italians would settle. So they came and settled in areas that were populated by people like themselves. So if you look at New York City now, we have, you know, Little Italy and, you know, the Jewish Quarter and Chinatown and those types of things. That's how those types of neighborhoods arose. This is just a picture of some immigrants. Where do you think they're from? What makes you think that? I'm actually thinking that you're going to be answering these out loud to your computer. They are most likely Eastern European immigrants as a result of where we get that clues because of the way that they're dressed. But yeah, they're Eastern European immigrants coming from Ellis Island. We also are moving from country to city because there are jobs in the city. So people are moving there to try and have more job opportunities and places to live. So they're moving because of the lack of need for people on the farm. And that comes with the farming technology and how it's improving with the John Deere and the McCormick and Deere machines. We have now more efficient farm laborers, so the need for, well, they're more efficient because they have machines. So the need for farm laborers is greatly reduced because they don't have as much work for them to do. It's all being done by machines. So yeah, less laborers were needed because farming was more efficient. I spoke ahead of myself there. My apologies. With all of this development in urban areas, we start coming up with urban problems. So first of all, housing is going to be a problem. You can buy a house on the outskirts of town, but then you have to get into town, and we don't have mass transportation yet. So that was a problem, and housing on the outskirts of town was more expensive. You could also rent a room, you could live in a row house, or something that was called a dumbbell tenement, and I'll talk about that when we get to a picture in just a second here. But ultimately what it comes down to is that more people wanted to live in the city because it was more convenient, and so in order to do so, they packed tons of people into small apartments that were very unsafe and unsanitary. A lot of these happen in row houses, which is exactly what it sounds like, rows and rows and rows of housing together. Dumbbell tenements, again, we'll talk about in just a second. And it was very, very unsanitary conditions that these people were living in. There's a picture on the left of a tenement house. So it would be lots of people living in one small room that sometimes had a bed, sometimes had a small closet type space for the parents to sleep, but it ultimately was the whole family all in one room. And then on the right is an actual photograph of a part of an interior bedroom from a tenement house. So they're not clean. Lots of people are shoving into them. Not the best situation. There's a family in their tenement house. You can see on the right there they've got the kitchen area. Probably didn't have running water. And then on the left there, you've got a crib for potentially the youngest member of the family, and everybody else just found a space and slept at night. Here's another family of immigrants living in a tenement house. Again, you can see how many different people are packed into one small space. And this is a picture of a dumbbell tenement. So from the front, that's the left picture there, they were just normal looking buildings, but on the inside you can kind of see that middle grip there, this part right here that looks like the grip of a dumbbell. It'd be a wonky dumbbell because it'd have more weights on one side than the other. But what happened is the families would live on this side or on this side. This would be one kind of apartment here, and this would be, I don't know, another apartment here. But on this center part, this would be a space in between buildings. So right next to this would be another building paired up just like this one. And the center area here would be kind of an air shaft that would allow for quote unquote ventilation. However, at this point sanitation had not been set up yet, so people would just dump their bags of garbage down out the window into this air shaft, and it would just pile up and be disgusting, filthy, dirty air that didn't actually alleviate any of the issues they had with air pollution and control. So that's a dumbbell tenement. We're also having issues because mass transportation is starting to evolve because we need to get people from one place to the other, and the way that we're doing it prior to this was very ineffective with horse and buggy and or just walking. It's hard to keep up with the old transportation, so they want to build for the new demand because we have so many people coming to the city. They want to settle more and more areas and be able to be transported from one area to the other. Also, we have some issues with the streets because people are buying a lot of things from individual vendors. And as a vendor, you would have your stuff out on your cart. And if you were selling fruits or vegetables, you know, if you had ones that had rotted, you would just throw them in the street when you were done because you didn't want to take them with you. If you were living in a house, you would throw your garbage, you know, in a tenement, you would throw your garbage either in that air shaft or you would throw it just onto the street. And there wasn't clean running water in any of these areas to be able to rush away these dirty things that were being left, along with bathroom excrement and those types of things. So it was very unsanitary because none of the disease was being controlled. So we had a lot of troubles as a result of people using the streets as their garbage dump. And a lot of these buildings were made out of wood, so if you lit your candle at night to read or whatever, you ran the potential of burning down your building that you lived in. Also, factories had that issue as well. So here are those vendors I was talking about. Here's a picture from the streets of New York City. And you can see the different carts that they're selling things from. So if you had a cart that had, this is actually from Mulberry Street, and Mulberry was kind of the heart of what used to be the Jewish neighborhood. Mulberry Street is still very laden with immigrants and very lively communities today in New York City. And so you've got kind of your horse and buggy type thing going on. You've got your people who are walking with their carts. You've got people who are just walking. So there's really kind of just mass chaos in the street, and you really just have to pay attention to where you're going because, again, it was the garbage dump. So if you see the guy on the upper right-hand side here, he probably could just take his garbage or his bathroom excrement and throw it out to the street, you know, ideally at early in the morning or late at night so that it wouldn't hit any of the people that were out there. But you always had to be sensitive as to what you were traipsing through because it was very unsanitary. And then they started to build mass transit, so then it cut off where all those people were able to sell things, and it cut off kind of the transportation paths in terms of pedestrians, but they're going to build railway lines, not railway, but train car, rail car lines, trolley lines, those types of things. As a result of all of these problems that are happening, people start to put together groups and mobilize to try and reform. they want to make some changes. They say housing is unsafe. How can we change it? They say education is not going the way we want it to. How can we change it? And this is the beginning of the reform movement and the reformers. And they came under the idea of the social gospel movement. Young people, men and women, were coming to reform for these poor people that were living in these unsanitary conditions and these working in these unsanitary conditions. So they said that you would be saved by God if you served the poor. And so we had some different opportunities that arose from this idea that you were going to be able to reach out to those that were less fortunate than you and help those that were poor. And some of the different ways you could do that would be in settlement houses. So in these slum type neighborhoods where these tenement houses arose, you would be able to work in a community center. And do things and provide a space for young people to come together to be active, because there certainly was not room in their apartment to be active. If you run around the street, you're going to run, in someone's poop. I don't know. So the community centers were available for young people to come and kind of gather, and older people too, for that matter. The reform movement promoted education. They wanted to showcase different cultures and different social services that were available for people who were coming to the country. And the reform movement also established a need or a feeling of need among people, that we had a responsibility to help these people, these immigrants that have come to this new country and are shoved into, 12 people in one apartment. So as a result of some of this urbanization and industrialization, we have a change in some people who decide that they want to try and reform the way things are and change how we're going about helping people who are coming to the new country as immigrants. So that is the birth of the reform movement, which we'll talk about more in class.